The Paramount Theater had been abandoned for 15 years when I got the job as night security guard. It was a beautiful old movie palace from 1927, all Art Deco architecture and faded glamour, sitting in downtown like a forgotten monument to Hollywood's golden age. My name is Marcus Webb, and I'm a film school dropout working security to pay off student loans. When they told me I'd be alone in the building from midnight to 6 a.m., I thought it sounded perfect. Quiet time to work on my screenplay, get paid to basically sit in a historic building. I should have asked why they needed security for an empty theater. The first week was uneventful. I'd walk through the lobby with its cracked marble floors and dusty chandelier, check the auditorium with rows of torn velvet seats, make sure the projection booth was locked. The place was creepy, sure, but in that atmospheric way that felt almost inspiring. I'd sit in the lobby and write, occasionally walking my rounds. Then came the night I heard the projector. It was 2:30 a.m., and I was typing away when I heard it, the distinct clicking whir of a film projector running. Old school mechanical, the sound of celluloid feeding through gates and sprockets. I grabbed my flashlight and headed upstairs to projection booth. The door was still locked, exactly as I'd left it, but the sound was definitely coming from inside, rhythmic and steady. I unlocked the door and pushed it open. The sound stopped immediately. The booth was empty, the old projector sitting silent and dusty, disconnected from any power source. I checked every inch of the small room. Nothing could have made that sound. No animals, no machinery, nothing. I locked it back up and returned to the lobby, my screenplay forgotten. I sat there in the dim light of my security desk lamp, listening to the building settle around me. At 3 a.m. exactly, I heard applause. It came from the auditorium, the unmistakable sound of an audience clapping, not scattered claps, but full applause, dozens of hands coming together in appreciation of something I couldn't see. My heart pounding, I walked to the auditorium doors. The applause grew louder as I approached. I pushed through the double doors, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The applause stopped instantly. The auditorium was empty. Rows and rows of broken seats facing a blank screen, thick dust on every surface. But in the beam of my flashlight, I could see something that made my blood run cold. Every single seat in the orchestra section, maybe 200 seats, was folded down, as if an entire audience had just been sitting there. I knew for a fact that all those seats had been folded up yesterday. I checked myself. Hello. My voice echoed through the empty space. Is someone here? For a moment, nothing. Then, from somewhere in the darkness above me, the balcony, maybe, I heard laughter, not malicious laughter, but the genuine mirth of someone watching a comedy. A single person chuckling at a joke I couldn't hear. I ran. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I ran back to the lobby, locked myself in the security office, and didn't come out until morning shift arrived at 6 a.m. I should have quit, but the pay was good, and in the daylight, I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Old buildings make weird sounds. The seats probably had faulty springs. Totally rational explanations. The next night, I brought my camera. If something happened, I'd document it. Nothing happened until 2:15 a.m. That's when the screen turned on. I was in the lobby when I noticed a faint glow coming from under the auditorium doors. When I pushed them open, the screen was illuminating the entire theater in flickering black and white light. A movie was playing. I walked down the aisle, transfixed. It was a silent film, something from the 1920s by the look of it. The footage was scratchy, damaged, but I could make out the scene, a woman in period dress running through a hallway, looking back over her shoulder in terror at something chasing her. But here's what made my skin crawl. I could hear the movie. Silent films don't have sound, but I could hear her footsteps, her panic breathing, and something else behind her. Heavy footfalls, dragging steps, getting closer. I looked up at the projection booth. Through the small window, I could see the silhouette of someone operating the projector. "Hey!" I shouted. "Who's up there?" The figure didn't move. The movie continued playing. I ran up the stairs to the booth, my camera forgotten. The door was locked. I had the only key. I fumbled with it, got it open, burst inside. Empty. Completely empty. But the projector was running. Film feeding through it smoothly. The image casting perfectly onto the screen below despite the machine having no power source. On screen, the woman had stopped running. She was standing in what looked like a movie theater, staring directly at the camera, at me. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. Then she pointed behind me. I spun around. Standing in the doorway of the projection booth was a man, tall, dressed in a projectionist uniform from the 1920s, his face hidden in shadow. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, blocking the only exit. "I don't want any trouble," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm just doing my job." He tilted his head, as if considering this. Then he raised one arm and pointed past me at the projector. I looked back. The film had changed. Now it showed this projection booth, this exact room. And in the frame, I could see myself, but from behind, from where the man was standing. I was being filmed, right now, by something that shouldn't exist. When I looked back at the doorway, the man was gone, but the door was now closed, and when I tried it, it wouldn't budge. I was locked in. The film on screen continued. I watched myself try the door, panic rising. Then the perspective changed, swooping out through the walls, down into the auditorium. The seats were all filled now. Hundreds of people, all in 1920s attire, sitting perfectly still, their faces pale and wrong in the projector's light. And they were all looking up, at me, at the projection booth. A title card appeared on screen, white text on black. The last showing, the audience stood as one. They began moving toward the front of the theater, climbing onto the stage, reaching up toward the screen. Their movements were jerky, wrong, like footage played at the wrong speed. I pounded on the door. "Let me out, please." The film showed them climbing, coming up to the wall somehow, defying physics and architecture, getting closer to the booth. Then I heard them. Footsteps on the stairs. Lots of footsteps. Coming up, I looked around desperately. The booth's window, the one that looked down into the auditorium. I could break it, climb down maybe, but it was a 15-foot drop onto broken seats. The doorknob began to rattle, not from someone trying to get in, but turning slowly, deliberately from the other side. And I had the only key in my pocket. The film showed the view from the hallway, the door opening, the audience filing into the projection booth, surrounding someone, me. The door in front of me swung open. The hallway was empty. I didn't question it. I ran, down the stairs, through the auditorium where empty seats mocked me, through the lobby, out the front doors into the blessed normalcy of a city street at 3 a.m. I kept running until I reached a 24-hour diner 3 blocks away. I sat there shaking, drinking coffee until sunrise, trying to convince myself I'd had some kind of episode. But when I checked my camera, I found footage I didn't remember taking. 10 minutes of the auditorium, the seats all filled with those pale, still figures. The timestamp said 3:17 a.m. when I was running through that same auditorium and saw nothing. I quit the next day. Told them it wasn't a good fit. Didn't elaborate. They hired a replacement within a week, a college kid named Danny who thought it would be easy money. Danny lasted 2 nights. They found him the morning after his second shift, sitting in the auditorium, staring at the blank screen. He wouldn't speak, wouldn't respond to anything. He just sat there, and every once in a while, He'd applaud gently, like he was watching something only he could see. He's in a psychiatric facility now. The doctors say catatonia, but I know better. I did some research after that. The Paramount Theater had a fire in 1931. It started in the projection booth during a late showing. The projectionist, a man named Walter Keane, died in the blaze. But that's not the worst part. There were 183 people in the audience that night. The fire doors had been chained shut by the owner to prevent people from sneaking in. All 183 died in their seats, trying to escape, trapped in the theater while the screen kept playing until the film melted. The theater was rebuilt, reopened, eventually closed in the 2000s. But according to old newspaper archives, I found there have been incidents. A janitor in 1955 who claimed he saw full audiences at night. A security guard in 1972 who was found wandering downtown, talking about a permanent showing. A group of teenagers who broke in on a dare in 1998. 2 of them never spoke about what they saw, and 1 still has nightmares. The building is scheduled for demolition next month. The city finally approved it after Danny's incident. But I think about those 183 people trapped in eternal showing and Walter Keane still running a projector, and I wonder if demolishing the building will set them free, or if it will just scatter them to other theaters, other screens, other dark places where movies play for audiences that never left. I haven't been to a movie theater since. Can't do it. Every time I see a darkened auditorium, I remember those faces staring up at me. Every time I hear projectors whir, I'm back in that booth, watching myself on screen. Last week, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a film reel, old, 16 millimeters, the kind they don't even use anymore. There was a note, for your private screening. The reel is sitting on my desk right now. I haven't watched it. I'm afraid of what I'll see. Afraid I'll see myself, filmed from impossible angles, playing a role in a movie I never agreed to star in. Sometimes, late at night, I hear applause, faint, distant, like it's coming from very far away, or from somewhere that doesn't quite exist in the same space as my apartment. And I know with cold certainty that somewhere in the dark, Walter Keane is still running his projector. The show must go on. It always does.